Welcome back to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Today, we are happy to be joined by Nailed member, Service Lighting, and also lightbulbs.com. So they have like an alias online or a handle that they sell on the internet with, and the company's called Service Lighting. And I am with Paul McLellan and Jason Bourassa. And so we're going to get to them in about 1 minute. I read their bios, folks that are listening, and I think it's better they tell a story. So we're going to get into that in a second, Greg. But before we do, we have to go to ETI Lighting. ETISSL.com, Greg Eric.
That's right. And as 4 lighting geeks here are going to know, down lights or can lights or pot lights, what Michael calls them, that can be a confusing category. A lot of different options, a lot of different ways you can go. And when you do that and when you deal with a downlight, you want to deal with a company that has it all. ETI Lighting has it all when it comes to recessed cans. They have canless wafers, gimbal ring, commercial, retrofit gimbal, surface disc, everything you need for recessed can, ETI has.
And we're going to have these guys are all from Minnesota, so I feel like I'm kind of an outsider here. But the convention, Greg, is coming up, 19th through 21st. Be there or be square, St. Paul Hotel, right in Minnesota. What's going to happen, buddy?
We're going to get after it. We're going to have great discussions, a good group of people getting together. Everybody on this call is going to be there, I think, so that'll be fun.
Brian Huff, the president of Nailed, is going to throw out the first pitch. I might run for president if I can throw out the first pitch, even if it's a minor league baseball game. So we're going to be going to the baseball game at night, folks. So go to naild.org to register for that. But for right now, let's do the podcast. Paul, Jason, welcome to Get a Grip on Lighting.
Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, I want to better understand. Yeah, I want to better understand this incestuous relationship. Jason, how did you get into the game at Service Lighting Lightbulbs.com? Tell the story.
Well, at the time that I met Paul's sister, who became my wife, her dad was running a lighting company. And so I graduated high school. I went and did tech support for basically a software company downtown for a year. And didn't really enjoy that. My future father-in-law invited me to join the company, and so I got into it. I was working the showroom at our smaller facility back in Fridley, and helping walk-in customers. A lot of those customers were looking for lamp parts. You know, they're looking for stuff like threaded nipples and hickeys for these lamps, and I'm like, this is kind of a perverted industry. What are we talking about here? So, but no, it was great. And so as I got to learn lighting a little bit through working with electricians that were coming in through the front desk, our online channel just blew up. And so Paul got us online, first lighting company online in 1996. And so then I was kind of pulled out of there and moved into the warehouse to work on the distribution side of the business. But yeah, that was my whole connection.
So, Paul, were you pissed that Jason was dating your sister, or how does that all work out?
You know, I got over it in a hurry. So Jason and I have worked together for 24 years, and 23 of them have been really good years. So you can try to figure out which year was the rough one. But Jason married into this industry. I was kind of born into it. My dad was born into it. And so, and I started here in 95, coming up on year 29 for myself. Most people say I must have started when I was 2 or 3 because I look younger than I am. But as Jason said, started in the 90s and brought us online. And as the story goes, back in the 90s, e-commerce and the internet was brand new. And my dad he signed off on me building a website for his company, but he wouldn't pay me. So he says, I will allow you to build a website for our business, but you're doing it on your own time at home. So for nights and weekends, I'd go home and just hover over the computer and built our e-commerce operation, and he retired off of that operation 8 years ago. So I think he finally has granted his approval for e-commerce.
Took a little while, but I want to get more into that. But we also, some of the background, full disclosure, I'm in Minneapolis. You guys are in Minneapolis. So I know your company pretty well, other than I'm a different company. But you guys have a long history. And the name.
Don't worry, Greg. We'll tell everybody to go to premierltg.com too.
Hey,
okay? We'll tell them. Don't worry.
Well,
okay?
I was going to ask before this podcast really got rolling, Greg, considering that we do share the same backyard, if you'd be willing to sign a 1-year non-compete.
All right, let's do it. Right here on air.
I told you it'd work, Paul.
Yeah, it worked. So yeah, I think you guys have a long history. My company's 1991. I think you guys are 1955. And Paul,
Wow.
maybe you or Jason, give us a history.
Yeah, so actually, yeah, 1951 is when we started. Mel Jacobson got the company going, and a couple years later, he was joined by my grandfather, my dad's dad, Don McLellan, and they created Lite. So they ran the entire company out of a box cargo van in the Minneapolis and St. Paul area, selling bulbs and batteries to grocery and hardware stores out of the back of a van. They had no building for the first several years, so it was Lite, which was a great name in the 50s. It did not resonate very well once we had a large facility and we went to do e-commerce. And so we rebranded ourselves in 2004 as Service Lighting, and then kind of rebranded our online identity as lightbulbs.com about 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, so the Vanillite model was actually going door to door, kind of door to door or business to business, whatever it was, but
Yeah.
driving it with product in stock, going in, seeing what they needed, grab it out of your truck and bring it in.
Yeah, and we ran that way for about 40 years, where we had a small showroom in North Minneapolis for a while, and then before that, our warehouse was our vehicles. Our vans contained all of our product, and we had 2, 3 vans that would just drive around the Minneapolis St. Paul area and deliver products to different businesses. So then we got a building finally and kind of grew our business. We had the showroom and started doing commercial lighting in the early 90s and went online in 96.
This sounds like an episode of Fargo or something. And then we
Yeah.
threw the body in under the light bulbs.
There was no wood chipper in my story though. I don't believe that ever happened.
I'm laughing at my own jokes here.
Yeah.
Jason, when you came into the business. I think everybody trips over lighting and falls into it and can never get out of the snake pit. There's something about lighting that once you trip
Yeah.
over and fall into it, you're done. You can never get out. How does it? Do you agree with that? First of all, and second, maybe share a little bit of the stories of how the lighting hooks got into you.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. So, it's always been comical to me. I didn't get into the commercial side of lighting until about 2008. And that's when Paul had me take over the online commercial sales team and the local commercial sales team. But what cracked me up right away was the amount of sales reps that we would see come in for TCP. And 6 months later, they're coming in and, oh, you're wearing a Sacco shirt. And so it kind of cracked me up. That's when I realized, like, this is definitely an industry that once you get into it, you stay into it. For me, it was, again, moving into developing our distribution side of our business because of the online growth and how quick it came. I was really focused on that. But as time went on, and you're looking at these products and you're picking these products every single day, a 50 or 50 par, uh, LN, long neck, very wide flood, and you're seeing these descriptions over and over and over. And then eventually, I'm starting to ask the experts that we're working with, what does that mean?
Sure.
I know if I match up these descriptions that were good, but as they started explaining all this stuff to me, I kind of realized, like, dang, there's a ton to lighting. There are so many different things, and I started to become fascinated with it and started to learn it just a little bit. And so as time went on, and as Paul kind of as he bought the company from his dad, he approached me about looking at sales and taking over that side of it. It was very intriguing to me. So I definitely fell into it, and it was a grassroots effort to kind of learn the industry and what our sales reps were doing and how they were doing it, and being able to just kind of grow into that.
Paul, the strategy. So you're a high school student, and your dad. You say, "I want to work for you, Dad." He says, "No, get out of here. You can go work for free for me if you want to talk about this website nonsense. Go for it." He says that to you. You start to plugging away at it. What was this? What was your strategy in the beginning, and how? Like you're talking 1996. You're talking about Internet 1.0. I think we're talking
Hmm.
about like now 3.6 or some other higher level of the internet. What was the strategy in the beginning, and then how did it evolve through all the crashes and economic
Yeah.
depressions and technology accelerations? Just take as much time as you want to kind of walk us through that story.
Yeah. So I'm such a big nerd that I was on the internet before the internet. which was called bulletin board systems. And you'd connect through a modem on your computer to local different computer server setups through a dial-up connection. And I was doing that in the early 90s, and it was kind of like the pre-internet. And so I'd been developing software for that. I'd been developing software for video games. I set out to be a video game designer, and I couldn't make any money doing that because, again, I was a kid. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know publishing, and I know I like software design. And so I'd been going to college. I did some PSEO classes for web design back when the internet was brand new, and I started asking to teach some of those classes because I knew about the internet when the professors were stumbling and struggling to try to convey what this new technology was. And I think what happened is, this is the worst cheesy joke ever, but the light bulb went off,
Yeah.
Michael and Greg. I'm sure you've never heard that one.
Right.
It kind of went off, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can make a buck doing this. Like, no longer is it a pipe dream and just the creative juices flowing. It was more of I think we can transact some dollars. And I'd walk around the warehouse of my dad's shop back then, and I remember adding the first item to our catalog, and now we've got about 78,000 items in our online catalog. I remember adding that first one.
Oh, you
It was
stole my question, you son of a...
I needed to know.
I still had, yeah, it was a Maglite flashlight. So we used to be a Maglite distributor. So the Maglite line, it was used a lot by police enforcement, law enforcement. And so I added one of those lights, and then we added some Eveready flashlights. We're an Eveready distributor, and then all of a sudden we got an order. And I still have a copy of the first order in my desk, just because it was like, we made $10. This is amazing. And yeah, I just kept plugging away at it. Just kind of that stubbornness and tenacity to, I think I can turn this into something. And then it kept growing. Jason started in with me here when we were just shipping about, gosh, must have been 20, 25 orders a day, nothing big. And then all of a sudden this line graph just took off, and our volume exploded. Our record as a company, I think we did about 5,200 orders on Cyber Monday a couple of years ago. So we went from our single order to 20 orders a day to, we did a day with 5,000 orders a couple of years ago. And that's been just kind of a trip. Like, there's times where Jason and I will actually pause sometimes and look at it and go, like, remember back when we were in this old auto body shop in Fridley, Minnesota, and we finally got our web order, and you look and kind of see what it is now, is becoming this big power player and disruptor in the e-commerce space. And so it's been now without its challenges. I mean, we saw the .bomb era when everybody kind of went belly up in the early 2000s, and you see lots of other economic disruptors, 2008 crash, and even through COVID. I mean, let's not forget what COVID did. What April of 2020 is our highest volume month in the company's history. Okay, this is after Menards shuts down and Big Box shut down. Everybody hits the internet, and we see what a powerful vehicle we have, because you couldn't go to your local big box anymore. You hit the internet, and volume just exploded. And so for something like that, it made us really realize how relevant and powerful and really how much of a long-staying entity this is. It's not going anywhere other than up. For years, the internet was kind of like this: will it make it? Will it not? And I knew it would be this new standard, and it has been.
My son came to me, and he said, hey, Dad, I want to do this stuff on Instagram or whatever, become an influencer. And he was talking to me, and he said something to me. He said, how did you create Get a Grip on Lighting? And I thought, I said, well, I spent a lot of time hanging out with Greg, and I have a feeling that these things create themselves and use you. It's actually the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I mean? Like, if you have if you have a good idea, it has its own momentum that you're a part of, and it's so fast and strong that you're just trying to help it as it grows, like you're some kind of cocoon and the butterfly flies. You already answered the question. I was going to say, does it feel the same way, that I didn't really control this? It just blew up all of a sudden over, and it took years of hard work and all this sort of thing, but it was its own momentum to it that was separated from me. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I never set out to create what we created. And there's some times where I sit back and go, what have we done? What kind of a monster has evolved here? But no, I mean, back in the 90s, our company's name was Vanolite, and we had the domain registered vanolite.com, which is one of the worst possibly formatted names. So before search engines, it was A to Z. Everything was a directory A to Z, and we're V. So we're at the bottom of everybody's list in what sounds like we should be a PR agent for Vanna White from Wheel of Fortune, and people would
Sure.
call us asking for Vanna White, and I'm like, this name sucks. Like, this is horrible. We're trying to be an e-commerce power player, and our name is Vanolite, and so it's very evolutionary to your point. Like you join in, all right, let's make a website. Step one. I didn't think about let's make millions. Now let's make a website. Now let's list a product on the website. Now let's try to add good customer support. And this thing is kind of a Frankenstein bolt-on product where you do get there eventually. You get there and you're like, yeah, we kind of created a good system with a really weird roadmap on the way to get there. We never set out with here's our 20-point plan on how to become a disruptor in lighting e-commerce. Not a chance. I mean, that's not how it happens.
If you ask Charles Barkley or Karl Malone why they didn't win a championship, they have lots of reasons. Right? I didn't have a big man. I did this and that. You ask Michael Jordan, because I'm the best, buddy. Just we did it. But there's no success is actually way more difficult to explain than failure. Failure is really easy to explain. You can see all sorts of different holes. You start blaming people and this kind of thing. But with success, it's hard to explain. So congratulations, man. It's just such an amazing story. Back to you, Jason. Where in the office, what's the culture like? You're not part of the family, but you're part of the family. So you're their in-laws. So you're not totally of them. Are the McLellans a little bit weird? Do they? What's the culture like on the inside of the company?
You are setting me up, man. You want me to get fired?
Let's go.
The McLellans are weird. Are you kidding me? Like just like what Tim Walls is saying right now, right? No, I'm just no. The culture here is actually it's awesome. So we've got 5 of your kids working here? Is that right, Paul? Yeah. So 5 of his kids are working here. So it's not just Paul I got to be careful with. It's usually you can find like a random aisle in the warehouse where I can talk crap about Paul or something, but not anymore because, those kids are all in the warehouse. And so, but no, in all seriousness, my son also works here. It's a phenomenal atmosphere. We are really, really big on having people come to work. The motto here is work hard, play hard. We do all kinds of things year round to try to really influence people to build that chemistry with each other as a work environment. We do an office versus warehouse basketball game. We've done that for the last 3 years. Memorial weekend, we shut down for half the day. We do a beanbag toss tournament. We have an awesome company dinner we do. We've got different costume contests throughout the year. So the atmosphere here is pretty awesome. We push that. And what's really benefited us from doing that is we've had a lot of people come on part-time in the warehouse. And some of those people are in management now. 30 to 40% of our sales force started part-time in the warehouse. So these are people that come on, they just need a part-time gig to get them by, and they see our atmosphere, they experience it, and they realize, like, I don't want to go anywhere else. And we've had people work here, leave, come back, and they're like, yeah, what you guys have here is special. So it's a great atmosphere, and I only mildly worry throughout the day about getting terminated by saying the wrong thing about a McLellan.
Good. And you guys have kind of everybody has their own unique model. There's other online lighting distributors that all they do is sell online. You guys have people in the field. We're primarily in the field. Michael's primarily in the field. Have a little bit of website, but you guys have a pretty good balance, it seems, or am I wrong on that?
Yeah, we are diverse. No, Jason, I got this one. I started talking before you. I'm going to exert some of that McLellan authority. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
This is a back and forth. This is what happens when you work with family. 24 years of working together. This is what you get, guys. This is part of it.
Right.
No, we're really diverse. So going back to our business model in the 50s, kind of going to grocery and hardware stores, like we still do that. We still do about $1 million a year in revenue in facing forward shelves of bulbs and batteries to the local metro area here in Minnesota and even in Wisconsin. So we still do that piece of business. We have our online retail presence at lightbulbs.com. We sell on Amazon and Walmart marketplaces, and we do the B2B side with inside sales, local sales here in Minneapolis. We've got a branch in Florida with 3 full-time sales reps as well. And so, oh yeah, gosh, one more, 3PL. So we do a lot of 3PL for utility implementers. So when you work with your utility company and they're sending you energy promotional opportunities, we do a lot of kind of behind the scenes 3PL for LED light bulbs, smart thermostats, and products like that. So we like to kind of have our hands in lots of different lighting, energy efficiency, and fulfillment industries.
I wish Greg would
Sure.
commission the lighting control system in his office after 7 years.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
Need to move a little bit more. There we
After
go.
7
How's that?
years, it's been 7 years.
Thanks.
So
Get the
okay.
Pico.
So I've often debated the whole culture thing. So, from my perspective, I always say, obviously you guys have a very powerful corporate culture, and that it embraces certain people, and people that don't like it have to leave. Because there's people that are not into that, won't survive your corporate culture because they're not going to fit in, right? I've gone the other way, and I've debated, like, I'm going to say a bad word, but I mean it in a good way, that, Paul, you've kind of created a bit of a cult. Like you have employees working for you, you got family running around the warehouse, you got basketball games going on between the warehouse and the order desk staff. I'm sure they get competitive. You got all these different parties. Is that a choice that you made, or did your dad, like in the past, was your dad always hanging out with the sales guys, the van guys, got together and drank beer and had a bucket fire around the rink or something like that? Like, was it always there, or did you develop that?
That's a really good question. I think I observed a lot of I was going to say cult behavior, but yeah, this whole conversation will take a turn. A lot of family unity, a lot of unification amongst the staff. I think I just likely observed a lot of it growing up. We did a lot of things like that growing up. The whole company and their families would go to a camp for the weekend, hang out. They'd come over to my dad's backyard and do a barbecue. And so when I bought the company from my dad, I remember meeting with Jason and our other directors and kind of just indicating that I really wanted to focus on culture. For me as a business owner, very important that people do enjoy going to work. People may choose something else other than a job if they could. You know what? I would rather not go to work. I'd rather go on vacation to the beaches of Florida. But since we have this thing called debt service and loans and mortgages, there is this necessity in this country to finance that through a job. And so my goal has been, how can I give somebody a job opportunity where they can make a good living, where they can feel like they are contributing to the greater good, and they can enjoy their coworkers. And so it was definitely a goal and a vision of mine when I bought the company and took over and tried to reboot the culture a little bit. And the important part of that recipe is having a management staff that also buy into that, which sounds like I'm selling something, but I'm not. They buy into that vision. They embrace that vision, and then it has kind of a trickle down effect to their staff. And that's what we have here is we have a great core leadership team that all agrees that we want to run this business this way. And the end result are people that really enjoy their jobs, and we've got great tenure because of it.
And as far as products go, you guys mentioned on your website, flashlight was your first one. I've never sold a flashlight in my life. What else are you selling on there other than light bulbs? I mean, I can look.
Oh, yeah, it gets diverse. And Jason, I know you've got some thoughts on this too, because you've got some funny anecdotes about this. But my gosh, our catalog has exploded in growth. We started with the light bulb, right? So we're service lighting, lightbulbs.com. That's our bread and butter, is lighting. What we learned over the years is that lighting is not just used to create light output that you can see and operate by and just illuminate. It's used to accentuate and decorate. And so people were using lighting for all these side goals that we never saw as a primary reason. So you can get into home and garden lighting and holiday lighting and giftware, Christmas lighting, or just ambient lighting. Like in my office here, I don't use my overhead lights because it creates a glare on the monitor. So I've got all these lamps in my room or my office here where it's on low and it just kind of creates that soft glow in the corner. And that's part of lighting that we've embraced. And we do probably 2 to 3 million a year in that category of lighting, which then has lent itself to, well, if we're buying Christmas lights from a vendor, why don't we sell their Christmas trees and then maybe their ornaments and also their ribbons and their pillows and their everything else that goes along with it? And so Jason has always commented on, like, where did we get these planters for, like these things that go in gardens? Well, it's a funny story. We sell this lit item that goes in a garden, and we can get freight paid on our POs if we bring in more items from their catalog. And so we've morphed into this lighting primary, but also lighting decorative and general decorative e-commerce superstore.
Greg.
Just Christmas? No Halloween, no Easter. Get it all going.
And we do a lot of
A
that,
little bit.
Jason. Yeah.
But everything.
It's interesting that what is if there is any, what is the growth stream that you see right now in light? Obviously, don't give me any trade secrets, but just from your positioning right now, almost 30 years in the game, built a huge website, beautiful business, good culture, good people, all these things that are so wonderful in life. And I think a lot of people right now in the lighting industry, Paul, are looking for answers. They want to know what's next. We're on the other side of this. I'm looking forward to bulb bans in Canada to make things happen. You know what I mean? It's like, what's going to push the envelope here? What do you see from your perspective? You got so many irons in the fire. Where's the growth going to come for our industry down the road?
Yeah, well, you talk about bans, and so that's the disruptor, first of all, is the Department of Energy incandescent ban, which is then going to latch its cold, icy grip into CFLs and fluorescent technology, and maybe even poor performing LEDs. So that's going to keep things interesting for the next 5 years or so, right? Like that was a big disruptor last year, was the DOE ban on general incandescents. As far as growth, we see it in the B2B side, the commercial side. I think that you've with Premier Lighting, Greg, you've probably seen that as well. Like with commercial lighting, you have like this shrinking of business opportunities with rebates and LEDs lasting longer, but then you've got, Gen 5 is really cool, and now it's connected to smartphones, and now it can do this thing, and the lighting is better, and it's RGB, it's tunable. And so there's all these new bells and whistles that are making it easy for us to get back in the door and say we can upsell you on this as well. And so I think that commercial lighting has massive growth potential, not just here in the Minnesota area, but for us, we do a lot out of state. Primarily, it's out of state, and I think that one big horizontal market that we've seen, I mentioned like Christmas lighting, decorative product, and it's really kind of the EV category, whether it comes to EV chargers and accessories, because we've already got the ear of the maintenance guy or the business owner that's wanting to save money and save energy. We've opened up a lot of EV discussion opportunities as well, where we can talk to them about, let's look at electric vehicles. How does that tie into the conversation? And then a very loose one that's kind of distant is HVAC. How does that connect into everything? And so with lighting and the light bulb, it's like, here's our gateway, here's our discussion piece to kind of get in the door, and then there's these new markets that open up.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to ask you guys too is and we've talked on the show before about lighting being a regional business. You guys are very well covered around the country, but isn't it difficult to sell lighting if you don't see it at times, like in businesses? I'm running around all day, going to different places, and I just think like, what if this was in St. Louis or wherever? It's like you can't do it unless you're there a lot of times. But are you finding tricks and methods that are successful where you can actually assess someone's lighting without being there?
Yeah, we faced that early on. So that was one of our biggest challenges when commercial sales started pouring through the site. And I think we were dealing with commercial sales for probably a good 2 or 3 years before we finally were like, we need a dedicated rep online to be fielding these calls, and someone who's going to be a little bit more well versed in that category. And so one of the challenges for us was it was easy to sell fluorescent tubes, HIDs. You guys know it was easy for everyone to sell that kind of product. But once LED came, that's when it became a little bit more of a challenge, and we realized we had to get on site. So it was a little bit of an investment up front from Paul to send a rep and a sales manager down to a location, as long as we felt like the opportunity was worth it. And we'd go there. We would do the lighting audit. I mean, locally, I mean, I'm sure you know of TRC, and they would charge for those audits. Well, the way we looked at it was, hey, we can have some value added if we don't charge for that, and if we're willing to travel to the area. And we fortunately saw some success early on from those visits, and allowed us to keep doing that model.
Do you
So you're
see?
still going on site. That's
So
the thing.
he's saying he
yeah.
agrees with you, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason agrees with you, Greg, that there is an element of lighting that is personal and regional for sure. Yes, I hear that.
Yep.
But I have to ask something else, right? So from an extension from what you just said, do you think? I'm going to go Paul on this one. Paul, do you think that trend in our current circumstance is going to become more popular, more valuable? Somebody that has maybe some old 2x4 troughers that are going yellow in the middle and the light's not working. They got burned out LED purpose-built fixtures or whatever. Do you see the future as being more regional because of the technicality of the problems? Or do you think someone's going to solve, is lightbulbs.com going to solve that problem online?
Yeah, I think it's the opposite. I think it'll become less regional. We did commercial lighting here in the Twin Cities back when all we had was boots on the ground, cold calling, door knocking, going door to door and drumming up business. And that still works. I mean, we still take advantage of that here being in the state of Minnesota, but we closed some really large deals without ever setting foot in a state, 1,000 miles away. And if we're doing our job right, and if we look at blueprints and CADs, and if we are working with the manufacturer and we're double checking things, crossing our T's, dotting our I's, I mean, we have proven that over the past 15 years since we started doing B2B internationally from Minnesota, that you don't always have to be. Now, there are some times where it warrants it. The size of the customer usually warrants it, right? If you've got $1 million customer, I'm going to visit your headquarters several times a year, no matter what. It's just the right thing to do. We can fly out there, and we do that often, but you don't have to. The internet shrank a little bit of that endeavor and made it to where we can transmit data and have good faith with POs. We can communicate better, and we just don't feel like we have that need to be there physically all the time. We've got about 100,000 commercial clients that we take care of here from Minnesota, and the bulk of them are in Chicago, Miami, Dallas, California. We're working with them internationally. Some of them are in Canada, some overseas. Many of them we've never been to, and we don't necessarily need to. And so I think that by embracing the internet and that kind of remote accessibility, that we can get that done from a remote location.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing to some degree. We're doing a little bit of that ourselves, but I still see the value in being there, and you guys are in the same boat. It's just, and maybe now more than ever to some degree too, because there's a lot of people that are staying behind a screen, and that's where they stay, and then you'll never see him again. And I've worked with a customer that I've worked with for 15 years, and they had a new person start a year ago, and I hadn't been there in a year, so I went there today, and he's like, "Thank you for coming in person." I'm like, "Yes, of course." And that's the kind of thing you still need to have, and I'm starting to feel the importance again. I might get a van and stock it up and just drive around.
Hey, I got a really cool. I got a cool company name that expired. I can sell you a Vanolite really cheap if you want to use the name.
All right, I got one more topic. Okay, I've talked about it on the show. I don't know if you guys have heard this one or not, but I call it artificial stupidity or artificial intelligence. I think it's 50-50. It goes both ways, just like everything else. Are you incorporating any machine learning? Because I don't like the term AI. I think it's a bad term. Are you incorporating any machine learning into your business, Paul and Jason? Who I don't know which one's better to fill. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even here right now. This is machine learning holograph.
It's a holograph of Paul.
That's how good I am. Yeah. No. Yeah. Because I do a lot of our software design still, I've done a lot of that, and we started implementing that about 10, 12 years ago. Where, I mean, let's face it, AI is a glorified term for really good computing power.
Sure.
And that's at its very core, that's what it is. And so we started doing that well over a decade ago when it didn't have a buzzword and it wasn't newsworthy, but it's really kind of looking at different patterns and repeated steps that a computer can take care of that a human cannot. And how quickly can it do it? And so one of the greatest machine learning tasks that we have here internally is, we're big on distribution. We ship out a lot of boxes Right now, it's kind of quiet in the summertime. We're doing 400 to 500 shipments a day, and then we'll do several thousand a day in Q4. But Jason and I worked on together trying to create a model of machine learning that is taking the data that we feed it from shipping packages every day to then feed us that information back. So we're trying to create and teach our system what works, how to ship a box, what to ship with, and then we let it tell us back what works. And that sounds really simple, but it's actually super complex. So we're feeding it thousands and thousands of shipment data, and it's quantifying that based on different people that have been packing for a long time. And so you might have somebody who's been packing for years. My son Austin, for example, he's shipped out tens of thousands of packages. He knows exactly based on memory. I know that this needs an 866. This is a 1064. This is a 26, 18, 12. Different box dimensions to ship something out. He'll make a choice. He'll make a choice that this particular combination of products needs this type of box. Great. We're going to log that in. We're going to log it in as gold because we know the person that packed it. The next person that gets an order for those combination of SKUs, it's going to take the frequency of all the boxes used and feed that back to the person. So they will then choose that box. It'll just show them right on a screen as they're scanning out their orders. They're going to choose that box and they're going to have the order packed in seconds rather than getting a tape measure out. What should I use? What's the safest way to ship this? And so we're kind of teaching the system what data to leverage and use to spit back to us that we then use and spit back to us again. And so it becomes this kind of this devouring machine that is giving us good data that allows us to really be nimble and quick when we're shipping out packages. And because we ship so much every day, that to me is a very crucial metric, is how quickly can we ship a package. You know, the other side would be service. We have a lot of automated corresponding that's happening between our systems and our customers that the customers think is a human being because we write it as if a human is writing it. And so we have a lot of automated communication, automated links to kind of take care of the light lifting so the human can come in and do what just the human can do. And so really it's knowing how to leverage computing and technology and custom software development to take care of the things that a computer can very easily take care of, and then let the humans come in and shine really and kind of provide that human element and that service element, which full circle allows us to handle a lot of these deals remotely. And that's where I agree with you that it's always better to have somebody at a customer site, right? Perfect world scenario. Yeah, you want to see that face. And so we try to hire people and put their best foot forward to where they are the person, they're the contact. Here's my name, here's my number, here's my email. I'm the lighting person for you. You need anything taken care of, I'm your guy, I'm your girl. Give me a call, I'll take care of it for you. We have to work a little bit harder at that human element because we're taking care of a lot of these jobs from a national point of view, from a remote location.
I call that elegance, not simplicity. So when someone puts together something that you pull in front of the place, someone opens the car door, you get your wife out, you walk in, they take your coats, you get a glass of champagne, you're seated at this table, Mr. Colligan, right here. Is there anything else? That kind of creation of business process is elegant. It's not simple. And it's not easy.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good word. And I think the wisdom comes in knowing what computing can do better than humans and what humans can do better than computing. And so you want to isolate those two categories and have them work and kind of stay in their lane. And I think that's how you can win at this e-commerce game.
Well, I think it's about 1,000 to nothing for you. So I don't think it, Greg, do you want to go to NALD.org right about now? How about ETISSL.com?
We can check that out. Any final thoughts on you guys on lighting in general, where things are at? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, just I know that your typical subscriber is used to very technical conversations regarding lighting. So, we have this new line called Kickerland, and they sell this mushroom light. Well, I'm going to throw the technical people a bone. Just so you know, this thing produces about half a foot candle at about 12 inches. It won't knock out your UFO high bay, but it will light up your stapler on your desk.
It's hard to see.
That's a
mushroom?
Lightbulbs.com. It's a mushroom. It's a mushroom.
Wow.
Oh, this way. There we go.
Symbolism of mushrooms. I mean, even Christian halos are mushrooms. Right? We can't go down that rabbit hole though right now, folks.
Yeah,
I want
we'll leave that one to Voss Lighting can take that
Yeah.
road and go down there. We'll stick in our lane.
ETISSL.com. Greg, any great thoughts for another wonderful nailed vendor ETI before we sign off?
Yeah, just what we talked about at the beginning, recess scans. Those are tough ones. There's a lot of different options you can go with, and if you're going to do it, you want to deal with someone who's got it all, and that's what ETI does for you. Every
Yeah,
recess
and this
scan out there.
this is a good example of what the side conversations that happen at the Nailed Convention, where all the cool kids in lighting are going to be. St. Paul, Minnesota. You got to be there or be square. Be square. 19th through 21st coming up real fast. I want to thank Paul McLellan, Jason Bourassa from servicelighting/lightbulbs.com. Guys, thanks for joining us today on Get a Grip on Lighting.